Hey, it's good to see you awake. You've been out for a bit. Where are you? You're in the hospital right now. Well, your friend brought you in here and you were in a really bad situation. Like, you were in really bad shape. You lost a lot of blood, and we almost lost you a couple of times. Thankfully, we were able to get your heart beating again. Hey, careful. Careful around the bandages. Nurses just changed it. I take it that you were also asked the important questions necessary for when a patient wakes up from a coma? Mm-hmm. Correct. That's it? You weren't asked how you got here? That must have been Nurse Lauren. She's still learning. She's one of the students I'm training. But that's okay, though. We know how you got here and what caused you to get here. If you'd like for me to tell you that. Of course. If what I tell you becomes too much for you, please let me know, okay? Because it might be a little difficult for you to process this. I should also mention that this is also in the perspective of your friend who found you and took you to the hospital and probably saved your life. So, your friend came by your place because they needed help with their schoolwork. They let themselves in. Yes, they said that they had a spare key that you had given them a while back. Mm-hmm. So, when they came in, they hollered your name. They knew that you were home because your bedroom door light was on. They came upstairs, and they were calling your name, but you weren't saying anything. And they said specifically that they gently opened the door, and they found you. It was a very horrifying sight for them. To put it lightly, your wrists had been bleeding for a few seconds, and you had just kicked over the chair. They immediately did their best to get you down. They took off their jacket and covered your wounds. Once you were on the floor, they did their best to stop the bleeding, and they immediately called 911. Surprisingly, despite all of the injuries that were sustained, you were still alive. It was very faint, though. Your pulse was faint, and you were unresponsive. You had lost a lot of blood already, and along with the injury to the neck, it was really, really a miracle that you were still alive. They also made makeshift tourniquets and put them on your wrists, and then they started doing CPR on you until the paramedics arrived. Once you got to the hospital, we immediately had a code blue on our hands because you had just gone into cardiac arrest. It was really messy, but thankfully we were able to get you stable, and your friend even donated blood for you. It really, really did help out in the long run. Then, you were in a coma for 4 days, and that leads to today. So, I think you and I both know what that sounds like. Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to shame you for what you did, and I'm certainly not going to put you down even further than you already are. However, I'm not going to validate it either. You almost lost your life a few days ago. It's a miracle that you're still alive. Had your friend been a minute later, well, you and I wouldn't be here talking about that hypothetical. Like I said, it's a miracle that you're still alive. Now, I'm an ER doctor. I make the quick decisions in high-stress environments and make sure that I'm always prepared for the unpredictable. But I also did learn a thing or two about therapy and psychiatry. I never became certified, but it doesn't mean that I can still talk to someone one-on-one as a kind stranger. So, when you were in a coma, we ran some background checks on you, and we pulled up some of your records. You have been diagnosed with depression and anxiety, as well as a few other mental illnesses. But I think you have already discussed that with your psychiatrist, correct? Am I also correct in saying that your psychiatrist is Mrs. Hemsworth? All right. I want to make sure that I have the correct records here. It also says that Your last recorded pickup of your medication was 2 months ago. So would I be correct if I were to assume that you have not been taking your medication? Hey, I want you to understand that there is no shame in that. I will not shame you, and I will not judge you either. After all, I am bound by patient-doctor confidentiality, so this discussion stays between you and I. All right. I want you to know that I understand what could lead people down that path. There are a lot of things that can lead up to that. You don't have to tell me what is going on in your life. You don't have to tell me what is bothering you that led you to going down this path. That is something you discuss with your psychiatrist and your therapist. However, I would like to offer some form of comfort to you. Visiting hours start in 3 hours, and I figured you could use something to think about that may help you right now. All right. I wanted to tell you a story. It's about my grandfather. He was a World War II veteran. He was on the beaches of Normandy the day on June 6, 1944, D-Day. In the days leading up to that, he was in boot camp, and he was training with a lot of his buddies. A lot of people that he shared a lot of interests with, people he was able to bond over. He converted to Christianity there. He learned a lot of things, as well as how to survive in a war, how to be a soldier. By the time they graduated, they were ready. They were ready to fight the enemy. They were ready to take the battle to the Germans. June 6, 1944 came. He and his platoon were placed onto a boat, headed straight for Omaha Beach. They had no idea what was in stores. He remembered how the vibe was slowly changing, is what he would say. He felt that at first people were excited to finally fight for their country, but then when they heard the gunshots, the explosions, and the screams, it was completely silent. Some were throwing up, some were scared to even move, some looked like they were already contemplating if they should have even signed up to begin with. But then they heard the whistle, and the ramp dropped. They got to moving. As soon as they got moving, that was when the gunfire started. The first few people who were at the front of the ramp didn't even make it. He and his platoon had to tumble over the side of the boat in order to get to the beach. The people in front of them, they didn't stand a chance. When they got up the beach, he remembers his platoon still being in front of him. He was trailing behind because he was all the way in the back of the boat. And then all he remembers is getting up to the beach, and then it sounded like something loud went off, and it knocked the wind out of him, is what he described it as. But then when he looked up, his platoon wasn't there. It was like they were there one moment and then gone the next. He moved up the beach trying to find them, and then he found what was left of them. Friends that he slept in the same bunk with. People that he really, truly saw as brothers. Gone in an instant. All that hard work, all those weeks of training, all for nothing. He was the only one who survived. He made it up the beach, and thanks to the help of the airborne, they were able to make a breakthrough. They got up the beach, took Omaha, and that was when he stopped telling me the story. That was the one time he ever told me about Omaha Beach. I can't even remember the next time he ever told me because, well, war does that to you. It scares you so much that when you finally have the guts to say what happened, it makes you relive it all over again. And when you know it can do that to you, you never want to revisit it. But he did tell me this other story. Throughout the time he was in France, fighting the Germans. He was contemplating ending his own life. He thought about how there's no point. He was constantly seeing people that he was bonding with dying right in front of him. And he was always thinking to himself, how long until my ticket gets punched? How long until it's my turn? But he always was saying to himself, why am I the lucky one? Why do I still get to live? And he thought that if the Germans can't do it, then he may as well do it himself. He threw all of his stuff around, screaming and crying. And then he grabbed his rifle and pointed it to the roof of his mouth. He was about to pull the trigger, but then the picture of his wife slipped out and was right next to his boots. And when he saw his wife looking back at him, it made him stop. He placed his rifle down, picked up the picture, and looked long and hard at her. He could swear that it was like she was actually in the picture, looking directly at him, like she was actually there. He swears that he saw her smiling at him, really there. And he said to himself that the picture was not enough. What he wanted was more. And he wanted to go back to her. He found a reason to stay. He found a reason for him to keep going and hopefully be able to see his wife again. He put the picture back in his pocket, gathered his things, grabbed his rifle, got up, and kept going. He told me that he was confident that he was not going to leave that tree. He was confident that when he sat down at that tree, that would be the last time he would ever sit down under a tree. His wife is the reason he lived. He went back into the war with a purpose to stay alive for the one he loves and to ensure that she never, ever, ever is threatened by such a heinous, heinous enemy. He took his battles to the Germans. And within a few months, the Red Army managed to push Germany back into Berlin, and soon they surrendered. It was such a wonderful and amazing feeling for him. He had been writing to her, writing to his wife, and he was doing everything he can to make sure she knew that he was still alive and his heart was still beating for her. And once the war officially ended, he came home. He went home, and when he finally pulled up to the ranch that they were at, he saw her. He got out of his car, and he doesn't even remember putting his stuff down. He remembers only getting out of his car, and then the next moment, he was in her arms. It was like his legs moved on their own. Either way, he didn't care how he got there, because the one thing he was fighting for was now finally back in his arms. And he told her one thing: "You kept me alive." And they got married. Then they had my father, and pretty soon, they went on and on. The point of this story is that he thought that there was no hope. He thought that there was no way that he could ever get out of this. He thought there was no point. But when he least expected it, a reason to keep going showed itself. A reason to continue to live presented itself to him, just when he was about to give up. While we were working whilst you were under cardiac arrest, we had noticed that there were tears on your clothes, specifically near the area where your mark on your neck is. The nurses were able to determine that they were claw marks from you. Would I be right in assuming that after you kicked over the chair, you changed your mind? Hey, take as long as you need. It's okay. Please, don't feel ashamed. Because there is a reason behind both of those things that I have just told you. I tell you the first thing. Your claw marks, it indicates that you have a will to live. You want to live. You, deep down, really want to continue to live. There's just demons that make you feel like you can't. But I'm here to tell you that you can beat these demons. You can keep going. There will always be a reason to keep going. Which leads me to the other point, why I told you the story about my grandfather. When he felt like that there was no hope, right when he was about to check out, the reason for him to live showed itself. His wife, that picture next to his boots, would have been the last thing he had seen until he took a real good look at it. May I ask, do you remember what happened when you changed your mind? You remember hearing your friend's voice, and that's the last thing you remember? I see. Do you want to know the way I see it? I feel that you and my grandfather had a similar experience. You have the will to live, and one of the reasons for you to keep going presented itself right when you were about to end it. And you got extremely lucky because that reason to keep going saved your life. They gave their blood to you because they want you to live. They want you to be alive. They want you to be happy. They want you to see tomorrow. They want to see you smile. They want to see you. Because they care about you deeply. So much so that they used their own jacket to stop the bleeding and tore parts of their clothes just so that they could make a tourniquet. They did all of that, and they never left your side because they wanted you to live. They want you alive. And they got their wish. They just don't know it yet. Hey, I want you to know that this is a lot for you, and I understand. And I do hope that what I've told you at least gives you some form of comfort, because I'm not a licensed therapist, not a licensed psychiatrist. That's for your psychiatrist. However, I felt the need to tell you something that could potentially give you some form of hope because of how young you are. I've seen patients like you countless times. Most of them don't make it. And it destroys my heart tremendously to see so many people who are so young, who have their whole life ahead of them, who feel like that they have no purpose in this world, and they end it. I have seen the worst of the worst. Some of those patients do make it, but some are left permanently scarred. Some are left severely injured in ways that they can't recover from, or they, of course, don't make it at all. And sometimes they fully recover. Thankfully, you fall into the category of those who can in fact recover. It's going to be a long time, both physically and mentally. However, I think that you will be able to pull through this, because you have a reason. They gave you blood. They saved your life. And they have been constantly waiting for you to wake up. Every single day leading up to today, they have showed up at the hospital at least 4 times a day. Because they really, really want you to wake up. You're right, they absolutely need to know. However, I feel like it would be better if they heard it from you. In this drawer right here were all of your personal belongings that were with you when you were brought in here, including your cell phone. Still has battery. So, why don't you be the one to give them that call? To let them know that you are still here. And they didn't lose you. You are very welcome. I'm really glad you're still with us. Just know that you really do matter. And I'm very glad that you exist. I'm really glad that you're still alive and you're still breathing. That your heart's still beating. Well, with that, I need to get back to work. If you need us for anything, you can call the nurses with this button right here. I hope that call goes well. And again, we're really glad that you're still with us. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, hold on, just 1 second. I almost forgot. I wanted to actually bring this to you. This right here is what we call boo-boo bunnies. We usually give these to patients who are extremely anxious, and considering what you have just gone through, you deserve one. Yeah, it's just like a Care Bear. Pretty similar small patterns, but very different. They have big eyes and a very simplistic design. And on top of that, they also have removable bandages, so you can take it off and put them wherever you like on your body. You're welcome. And once again, if you need anybody, you can call a nurse, and if you need me, you can specifically request me, okay? Do be aware, though, that I also am a very busy man in this hospital as well, considering ER doctor and everything, but I will do the best I can to make time to see you, all right? And remember, make that phone call. That friend, they have been praying and praying for you to wake up and praying to hear your voice again. Alrighty. Once again, call us if you need anything. Bye-bye. Oh, and one more thing. We're really glad that you're still here. I'm really glad that you're still here. I'm really happy that you made it, and I'm really happy that you're still alive. Take care.